or false. In order for that statement to be true, we have to affirm certain basic truths, one of which is, as you pointed out, logic. The law of non-contradiction, which has it that something and its opposite cannot exist at the same time in the same respect. That's a properly basic truth, because if we deny that, no matter what we say, the opposite of that could be true at the same time. Like, for instance, a married bachelor. Doesn't make any sense, does it? You're either married or you're a bachelor. If you say, I'm a married bachelor, that's a nonsensical statement to make.
The one thing to be mindful of, though, is that there are truths, there are simple truths, and then there are things that are, like you said, rationally deduced, using a series of simple truths. But the moment you are combining simple truths and you're putting them together, you're also putting in your own perceptions
bias
and such like that. And everyone puts some bias.
But before we do that, before we start placing bias towards answering things, it doesn't negate the fact that in order to know a bias, in order to recognize anything in our human perception, we still require to affirm the law of non-contradiction. So in other words, that's what I'm saying. It's a properly basic truth that cannot be denied. To deny it is to deny truth itself.
So in this context, what are the contradictions?
So my point here is that if we're confined by our rationale, it can't be us saying that, oh, I don't know, i.e. we can't infer things. That's why I gave the example before, which was that if the universe exists in the here and now, the only options that we have before us as rational creatures is that the universe was eternal, in which case, either we say we don't know, which means I don't want to know, I don't care, turn your brain off and walk away, or you say that it's not I don't know in the impossible sense. We can infer things, and that's precisely what I'm doing. If the universe is eternal, I can use the basic intuitive truths that I know, the present moment in time and the law of causality, and extend that back to an infinite past and come to the conclusion, well, an infinite can't exist. That forces me and our rationale to the other only option, which is, i.e. the universe has a beginning, right? So if the universe has a beginning, if we claim that the universe was brought about by or was part of the multiverse or some other causes outside of the world, we would still have to link the universe to these causes. And it still takes us back to the original argument, which was that the universe, if it's eternal, it has to be part of these infinite number of causes. So whether we subscribe to the idea that this single universe of ours is eternal, or it came from another universe or another source that is itself is eternal, it still brings us back to the idea.
It's a logical endpoint, which is that it has to be a beginning.
Yes.
And I guess that's where a lot of that doubt seeks is where, what caused the beginning. And for you, perhaps it was caused by
a source.
A source, which could be
a source.
Creator.
A source that has to not be part of the causes. Because if the source itself, whatever source you want to call it, multiverse, energy, or whatever you want to call it, if the source itself has a beginning or requires a cause aside of itself, then we have an infinite number of causes. The only other solution around this is to say that that source has to be eternal and self-sufficient. It can't require anything outside of itself. It has to be self-sufficient to have the power and the knowledge to bring the universe which has a beginning into effect.
I think that's one way of looking at it.
What other ways do you think is there?
I think there could be something beyond our understanding that we have not yet uncovered, a function of the universe or outside of it, which brings existence into existence. I think just because we don't yet understand it doesn't mean that that there isn't some function there. I think it's yet to be uncovered.
Do you think it's possible for us to discover something in the future which would contradict the law of non-contradiction?
You never know. It's for greater minds than mine, to be honest. I honestly, I think we've been wrestling with these questions for a long time, and I think the way you've come to it makes a lot of sense. And I'm not contradicting that. I think if it makes sense to you, it makes sense to you. And
No, but I'm asking you as a person who shares the same rationale that I do. You and I, we don't have anything extraordinary in terms of my rationale being better than yours. You know, if we had an IQ test, you two would probably beat me. But the point here is that when it comes down to these basic truths that determine how as human beings we understand the world and have always understood the world, if we human beings were taken away from the world, would these basic truths not be discovered by other beings that would come into this, that could arise in this world? Would it be possible, for instance, for the universe to exist and not exist at the same time?
I think I agree with the truths you're saying, with the extent of knowledge.
And by the way, I'm not asking you to do a rational paradigm shift outside of our...
Yeah.
So you know when you guys say, and I hear this often, oh, I don't know, it's possible that we may come across something in the future that may end up, causing us to make that paradigm shift. I'm saying, would that even make sense, logical sense?
I'm just not sure.
I mean, I believe so. I mean, there's so many things throughout history that were once mysteries, so we looked to a greater power to explain them. And then one after another, they were explained by science. I think, obviously, this is the question, because it is quite far beyond our understanding and ability to understand at the moment.
What's more probable? What's more probable, that using what we know, the collective human conscious, the cumulative knowledge that human beings have acquired, the science that has been done by various civilizations, grounded as it is in human rationale, the basis of which requires us to understand that something and its opposite cannot exist at the same time, affirming that and putting that into practice, the law of causality, going by that, what's more probable? That the source that brought the universe into existence exists, or that it doesn't exist, and therefore we're now going to have to face the imponderables of, well, either the universe popped into existence by itself from nothingness, or it is infinite, and therefore we've got to deal with the paradoxes that arise with it. What's more probable and plausible at the moment?
I would say, yeah, the universe was probably created by an independent source, but I believe that it was a scientific source, and I think that, I believe that it's a scientific source. I think that while there are these laws of logic that you're referring to that are correct, I think that they create, I think they pinpoint to the not complete area of research of science, which probably will never be complete.
No, because science deals with what we see and feel and touch and can test.
Yeah.
And this source is outside of the universe. But if we think about this source and we look at the universe isn't something that's simple.
That's very true. Yes.
It's profoundly complex.
Yeah.
And we're told that at some moment in time, it arose from a point of chaos to a point of relative harmony.
Yeah.
We're also told that the universe, when it began, it had certain fundamental constants. I'm not sure whether you've heard of these. Gravity,
the
right?
strong force.
The strong and the weak force, the nuclear forces, and gravitation.
Yeah.
And that they say that it needs to be finely tuned to a certain extent. I'm not going to get into the fine-tuning of it, but what I will say is that if this source exists and is the reason, the grounding for the universe, the source must exhibit certain attributes. Because I would submit to you that there is nothing that exists, that it must have certain attributes. Can you think of anything that exists devoid of attributes, qualities?
I suppose that's quite an interesting philosophical question. I mean, there's things like ideas, or emotions or things that human experiences that are hard to quantify. But they definitely exist.
What about things outside of the mind that we can see, that we would refer to as concrete things, not things that exist in our mind. Things that exist in our mind, for instance, numbers. Numbers don't exist in the real world, do they? You can't pluck number 1 out, number 2 out and start doing laboratory tests on them, right? Right. So what I'm talking about are concrete, extra things that exist outside the mind. You're different from me. His stick is different. This guy's mask is different. These are things that we can see, and they have their attributes. Like, for instance, that tripod there has attributes of being hard, dense, black, in time, and so on and so forth. We, as human beings, I would propose we have more attributes in that thing because we're more complicated in our structure. We determine these things. We have attributes of love, mercy, and so on and so forth. If that's true for all the things in existence, a fortiori, by that very rationale, would it not be true of the source itself that it has to have at least certain fundamental attributes?
There's definitely a function involved.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a cause. But I think at the same time, like you said, the universe is so intricate and complex. I think there's many things that are beyond our understanding. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to accept that. I don't think it's writing it off or it's saying, I'm not bothered. I think it's just saying this place we live is so intricate.
Yeah.
And it's okay to accept unknowns. And I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with accepting that the universe is beyond me in some ways.
But as a person in life, right, when we go through doing things, we never judge things and we never make value judgments. We never make decisions based upon the unknowns. We root our existence in the things that we know, the cumulative knowledge that we've acquired. If that's true for the mundane things, like, I don't know, today I'm going to wear these shoes, tomorrow I'm going to wear something black, right? Why do we not extend that for the most important things which may have a profound effect on our life? If there is a source that brought the universe into existence, and this source exists and it exhibits through our looking at the universe, it exhibits certain necessary qualities, i.e. it must have a will. It brought the universe into existence. And things that decide to do things, the things that we see around us, they exhibit volition and will. The universe has to have certain power, because something that's powerless is as good as non-existent. That's what our experiences in the world bring us to. The source has to have a certain level of knowledge. Because why? The universe has these fundamental constants. The universe exhibits complexity from a point of non-complexity to a point of complexity. Have a look at the periodic table, guys. Have a look at the Fibonacci sequence, the way the universe exhibits its intricacy through mathematics that could only have come about through human beings like us who can think at a particular level, at an abstract level. It's extraordinary that the world that this source brought into existence has within it a certain level of complexity that we can literally quantify. Right down through mathematical formulas, periodic tables, look at the Fibonacci sequence and say, this is extraordinary. So it's a proof that this source must be something that is alive. Because only a thing that is alive has these qualities to such a great degree. We affirm life for ourselves. We don't look at a dog and say that's not alive, because we know that dog has a certain level of attributes, more than a stone. So we exhibit, or rather we affirm life for a thing that has a certain level of attributes. Now, if that's true for us limited things in existence, why can we not extend that and say it's probable or possible that the source that brought the universe into existence is alive? And then the question arises, well, you know what, there may be more profound questions as to whether this impacts my life as a human.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it, and but I think it's just beautiful to also imagine that order came from nothing. We happen to live in a place that's stable. The reason why life came into existence is because we're in a universe that has relative order. there's also chaos. There's a lot of chaos in the universe. It could be a lot simpler. It could be a lot more orderly. If there was a creator, I wonder why there are many chaotic things without meaning.
Like what? Can you think of something that could be better by making it less chaotic?
I can't really speak to that. I mean,
How about this? A simple question. How do you know that the chaos that you've interpreted isn't precisely how the world should be?
I mean, it is. It is.
What
it
if
is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, what if I said to you that could the world make sense if we lived in it such that there's no such thing as no chaos? Can you conceive of a world minus any chaos? And if I asked you, can you articulate that and make it make sense to us people living here in this world that only know the world in the way that it is? A non-chaotic world.
That is a good question as well. You're posing some tough ones, and I think you could. I think there's like you could envision a utopian world where there isn't pain or suffering. I think.
Would that include no death?
Maybe.
That'd be a pretty boring life.
I don't know. Would it? I mean, isn't that what heaven looks like?
Very good question.
I don't know.
That's good. That's a good.
We don't know.
You know how we get around this in the Quran? The same Quran that says, were they created by nothing, or did they create themselves, or were they the creators of the universe? No, they have no certainty. What God is drawing our attention to is that the only reasonable assumption is that there has to be something that brought the universe into existence in order to explain how we and the universe came to existence. Another verse in the Quran, God says that we created everything in pairs so that they, meaning mankind, they may reflect. You know what this means? Creating things in pairs. It means that the world that we live in wouldn't make sense if things weren't created in pairs. Conceptually, for instance, there is good. Could we as human beings ever understand the world in a non-chaotic sense if there was only good and there was nothing to measure it by? Just good.
Why not?
How would we know what good is?
Things can just be. I think good and bad is a human idea, and things can just be. They can just be as they are. I think that is what the universe is. It's just things happening.
And that's precisely my point. You're making my point here that a non-chaotic world is nonsensical, because in order for the world to make sense, if there was just light and no darkness, we could never measure what lightness is, because there's no way for the way we've been created to measure something contrary to it. But the fact that we've been created in this way, the fact that nature has established the world with opposites, tells us that a world of no opposites would make no sense. So when a person asks the question, why is there evil in the world? It opens a door to the absurdity, well, the world would only make sense with no evil. But that would produce a world that, as you put it, a non-chaotic world, a world of no opposites. Because if there's no evil to measure by, we wouldn't have degrees of recognition within human beings. Within human beings, we have justice, the idea that if you're good to a certain extent, you'll be rewarded. The good, the bad, and the ugly. This can only make sense in a world of opposites. So the Quran is telling us, you live in a world of pairs. And the reason why God created this is because this world was never meant to be a world of absolute good or absolute evil. The fact that the world has degrees is a proof that the one who brought it into creation has a purpose. Now, we recognize as human beings within ourselves that when we come together, like you guys are friends, right? Not anymore, right? He believes you're going to remain agnostic, and that's I'm off. No, but look, when you guys come together, intuitively you guys know that if you don't behave in a certain way, it's not going to be good for your relationship, right? You start stealing, lying, you know it's not going to be good for your relationship. That's true for any society. You don't need to be part of a very sophisticated society. You can be an Aborigine, you can be a people living in the Amazon jungle. A primitive tribe knows intuitively that we have to have certain laws that are known and can also be developed, such that we live in a certain level of harmony. This could only be true in a world of chaos, if you will, or a world of opposites. Now, the one who brought the universe into existence, who had the knowledge to bring the universe into existence, guys, this being knows this better than we know ourselves, because it established this world with its opposites to a certain degree. So it's a proof that if we recognize justice amongst ourselves and we write it down and we live by it, we live and swear by it, it ought to be true. Justice as an attribute ought to be true of the Creator as well.
I think it's interesting that for you, when you see these dichotomies like chaos and order, good and evil, it points you towards proof of the Creator. But for me, it points me in the opposite direction. I think I see it more as proof that there is not necessarily inherent meaning. I think for me, it leads me to a philosophy of I can decide whatever I want out of the universe. I can make my own philosophy. And I don't personally think that's proof. But I do see your point. I really appreciate the logic of it.
No worries, no worries.
And I think that is great. And I appreciate you explaining your perspective.
Hey, no worries, I appreciate your time, mate. What's your name, by the way?
Jack.
Jack Hamza. Nice to meet you. And yours? Toby?
Yeah,
Jack, Toby, nice one, man. Listen,
Thanks for the conversation.
if what I've said, just very quickly, if what I've said has created a curiosity within you, the Quran is far more profound than this. The Quran has certain answers that will blow your mind. I would say if you've never read the Quran, read it at the very least. At least you'll come away knowing us Muslims a little bit better. And as they say, ignorance is better than ignorance isn't bliss. Let's put it that way,
I
right?
find these conversations really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to learn new things. So I appreciate you.
Hey, no worries. Okay, guys, listen, have a good time, right?
You too.
All the best.
Okay. I think that's it.